Welcome to Unbound American Stories, the channel where we uncover the lives of the extraordinary figures who shaped our nation, often from the shadows. These are the voices that history textbooks sometimes overlook, the rebels, thinkers, and visionaries who dared to challenge the status quo and change the course of America. Today's story is about Sybil Ludington, a story perhaps greater than Paul Revere's, but far less frequently told. The information in this video is based on AI-generated research and is intended to introduce you to her amazing life. Think of it as the beginning of a conversation, not the final word. To help you with additional research, the notes to this video include citations for the sources we used. On to Sybil Ludington. Sybil Ludington, the teenage writer who defied the night. Sybil Ludington was born on April 5, 1761, in Fredericksburg, New York, a small farming community in Dutchess County. The eldest of 12 children, she grew up in a household steeped in patriotism. Her father, Colonel Henry Ludington, was a veteran of the French and Indian War and a respected militia leader. Her mother, Abigail Ludington, managed the family farm while raising their large brood. Life in the Ludington household was one of hard work and duty. Sybil learned to ride a horse before she could read, navigating the rugged terrain of the Hudson Valley with ease. She helped her mother with chores, tended to her younger siblings, and absorbed her father's stories of battle and sacrifice. By the time the American Revolution began in 1775, Sybil was 14 years old enough to understand the stakes of the fight for independence. Her father's militia was tasked with defending the Hudson Highlands, a critical region for the Continental Army. Sybil often acted as a messenger, delivering letters and supplies between her father's men. She knew the countryside like the back of her hand, and her father trusted her implicitly. Little did she know, these skills would soon be put to the ultimate test. The night of April 26, 1777, began like any other in the Ludington home. The family had retired early, exhausted from a day of farm work. But around 9 p.m., a messenger arrived, soaked from the rain and breathless with urgency. The British had launched a surprise attack on Danbury, Connecticut, just 25 miles away. They were burning homes, seizing supplies, and leaving destruction in their wake. Colonel Ludington's militia was needed immediately, but there was a problem. His men were scattered across the countryside, spending the night at their own homes after a day of training. The messenger, exhausted from his journey, could ride no farther. Someone else would have to rally the troops. That someone was Sybil. At 16 years old, Sybil was not a soldier. She had no weapon, no uniform, and no military training. But she knew the roads, the farms, and the men who lived on them. Without hesitation, she volunteered. Her father handed her a stick to defend herself against attackers and to knock on doors, and sent her into the night. Sybil mounted her horse Star and set off into the storm. The rain poured down, turning the roads to mud. The darkness was near total, broken only by the occasional flash of lightning. Some accounts suggest she rode 40 miles that night, though historians debate whether the distance was closer to 20 or 25 miles. What is certain is that she covered twice the distance of Paul Revere's ride, through terrain far more treacherous. She rode through the towns of Carmel, Mahopac, and Kent, knocking on doors and shouting, "The British are burning Danbury. Muster at Ludington's at daybreak." Her voice cut through the night, waking farmers and militiamen from their sleep. Legend has it she even fended off a highwayman with her stick, though this detail remains unverified. By dawn, Sybil had rallied hundreds of militiamen. Estimates range from 100 to 400. Exhausted but triumphant, she returned home just as the sun began to rise. The militia assembled at her father's farm, ready to march to Danbury. Sybil's ride was a turning point in the Revolutionary War. The militiamen she rallied arrived too late to save Danbury from the British attack, but they pushed the enemy back, preventing further destruction. Her bravery had saved lives and secured a small but important victory for the American cause. Yet, despite her heroism, Sybil's story was nearly lost to history. For centuries, the contributions of women in the Revolution were overlooked. Historians focused on the famous figures, George Washington, Paul Revere, Thomas Jefferson, while the stories of women like Sybil were forgotten. There were two main reasons for this oversight. First, gender bias. The late 18th century was an era when women's roles were confined to the home. Sybil's ride was seen as an exception, not a reflection of women's capabilities. Second, lack of documentation. Unlike Paul Revere, whose ride was immortalized in poetry, Sybil's ride was not widely recorded at the time. The only written account came from her father's pension application, filed decades after the war. It wasn't until the 20th century that Sybil's story began to resurface. Historians, activists, and storytellers worked to rediscover and celebrate her legacy. Today, she is recognized as a symbol of courage, resilience, and the power of ordinary people to shape history. After the Revolution, Sybil returned to a life of relative obscurity. In 1784, she married Edmund Ogden, a farmer and innkeeper, and moved to Unadilla, New York. They had one son, Henry Ogden, who carried on the family's legacy of service. Sybil lived out her days in Catskill, New York, where she died on February 26, 1839, at the age of 77. She was buried in Paterson, New York, with a headstone that reads, Sybil Ludington, Revolutionary War Heroine, 1761-1839. Sybil's story has since been immortalized in countless ways. In 1975, the U.S. Postal Service issued a stamp commemorating her ride. A statue of Sybil on her horse stands in Carmel, New York, near the route of her ride. Every year, the Sybil Ludington 50K run retraces her journey, celebrating her courage and endurance. Her story is taught in schools across America, inspiring new generations of young people, especially young women, to recognize their own potential. Sybil's ride is more than just a footnote in history. It is a lesson in courage, determination, and the power of ordinary people to make a difference. Her story challenges us to rethink what it means to be a hero. Heroism is not reserved for generals or statesmen. It is found in the actions of everyday people who rise to extraordinary challenges. Sybil Ludington's life offers three key lessons for us today. Heroism knows no age or gender. Sybil was just 16 years old when she made her ride. She was not a trained soldier, but she stepped up when it mattered most. Ordinary people shape history. The Revolutionary War was not won by generals alone. It was won by farmers, blacksmiths, and young girls like Sybil who answered the call of duty. Legacies are built on actions, not fame. Sybil's ride was nearly forgotten, but that does not diminish its significance. True legacies are built on what we do, not on how famous we become. So the next time you hear the story of Paul Revere's ride, remember Sybil Ludington. Remember the young woman who rode through the night, through storm and danger, to rally the militia and defend her community. Remember the girl who answered the call of duty when her country needed her most. And remember that heroism is not the exclusive domain of the famous or the powerful. It is found in the hearts of ordinary people who dare to make a difference. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story. Who should we uncover next? Did we miss an important fact? Did we get something wrong? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching the video, and until next time, keep the flame of curiosity alive.